Here for the first time today. We got G2 on the blue side, we got GAM on the red. We got G2 immediately banning out the Nocturne as well as the Rumble and the Gwen. Those are like the most played top laners for Kiaya throughout the spring split for GAM. Pantheon and Maokai banned out by GAM as they target Skumond in the jungle.
Yeah, exactly, Flowers. G2 here, the strategy in game number 1, just target the big stars of GAM. Levi and Kiaya, you're talking about those most iconic champions for them. Those are the big 3 split between them. Of course, Levi, in addition to the Nocturne, Wukong, also a very, very big one for him. And game number 1, so many of the AD jungles are left open, so they don't have to really worry about that pool at the moment. And they opt for the Varus first here for Hansama.
Yeah, going with that power pick, AD carry. He works well with so many matchups and easy to pick him up B1.
And it's one of those strong lane AD carries. So then they have to worry about the other side on GAM, but immediately they're going to go for mid jungle instead first, as Taliyah is still up. And Taliyah is instantly locked in with one of the pairings. It's interesting, you know, people often think of the Vi, but they opt for the Xin Zhao instead. They don't want to go too all in on the Vi. Of course, Levi, the last Vi game was he went very, very deep and had some mishaps early on in the game. So opting for the Xin Zhao instead.
I love seeing Levi on a champion like Xin Zhao, because ever since I first saw Levi years and years ago, back when GAM was the Gigabyte Marines and they introduced us to the level 6 versus level 3 gank with power farming, he has taught me the philosophy of PvP at level 3 when you're a jungler. And I think that Xin Zhao is a great champion to embrace that type of aggressive play style that Levi is so good at.
One of the problems, though, if you want to embrace that style, Trundle is not the best one to do it against. Because Trundle is an insane 1v1 champion and is a very common and good response here into the Xin. So Skumond gets a little comfort there and gets a good matchup for himself. The pillar just can be so useful in so many areas, but really what we have to touch on is the Syndra pick here for Caps locked in game number 1 into that Taliyah. That is some mega burst damage. The pillar can line up easier stuns for the Syndra, make it harder for people to dodge around there. Also is a very good tool for Varus poke. So some synergies there for G2. Pillar making a lot of those long range abilities a lot easier.
Meanwhile, the response from GAM, their final pick before the rest of the bans roll in, will be the Jhin for Artemis down there in the bottom lane. So some long-range support from the AD carry position. We know how effective this champion can be at assisting from a distance that's long enough away where you're not in danger of getting hit by those scatter the weaks into the unleashed power, into the instant gray screen for an AD carry. Second half bans coming in now, though, and we're targeting top laners with Sion banned out by GAM and Jace, the first ban for G2.
Yeah, because Broken Blade is going to have to blind pick, and so GAM want to leverage red side counter pick here for Kiaya, so they want to take away some of those safer possibilities for Broken Blade. Sion instantly off the table, and they do go for the Jax here as well, so really trying to chop that one down. But yeah, the Kiaya matchup here into Broken Blade, it's no secret that Broken Blade has had a bit of a struggle this tournament. Yeah, definitely has been a rough one for him starting out, and so we kind of assume that he is going to blind pick something very safe up there. With the Sion out, you know, Renekton is a pretty good blind pick. Ornn is a pretty, tanky one, but it's not gonna win you a lot of matchups. And Kiaya here with counter pick could definitely do a lot of damage.
And I like the Nautilus ban from G2 here as well. They know that GAM are going to pick support on 4 to give Kiaya that red side final pick, counter pick. So they just want to remove that point and click lockdown for either one of these immobile carries in the Syndra or the Varus. Instead, GAM's just going to go with another CC heavy engage style of support with the Rel. So that's going to be their big engage button for when these team fights go down. But G2's response, they'll grab the Alistar, a very classic counter to the Rel, and Renekton, just one of the most fitted into anything. It works with everything. Blind pickable tops in the game of League of Legends.
Exactly. Blind pickable is the key there.
Oh, I love the BM here.
The shout out to the infamous Warwick of a Broken Blade. Elio, how long is he going to hold that one? Not too long. Honestly, the hovers over there, pretty interesting, but in the end, they still come back to the Gnar, which can do so many different things. You know, it has some split pushing options, has those team fighting options as long as they control the Gnar bar on their timings, and that is
work together like we've seen them do for a lot of the GAM wins with these champions like Xin and Gnar that want to dive into the back and find them. If they find those marks, they can tear through them.
Yeah, and even though we did see the analyst S all predicting G2 in this series, I want to point out some things that GAM has done very well in this tournament. And one of the main ones is that even in their losses to BLG, they had good early games. They had good early game setups. They oftentimes got themselves into good early game positions due to Levi being very active, proactive, and aggressive. And so they actually have, well, we're going to see a little bit of a move towards the Raptor pit. Just going to be the ward,
chicken
though.
ward.
But they often, they actually have the highest gold advantage at 14 minutes. Goal difference, actually, at 14 minutes of all of the play-in teams, even though they lost to BLG, because in those games that they still ended up losing, they still actually generated some early good positions. It's just that later on, towards the setups on around the objectives, and when they got to moving around the map, that they did lose out and drop those leads. So it definitely has been something that we want to keep our eyes on, because Levi definitely has been more proactive and a lot more active, say, than Skumon so far, who sometimes junglers, when you're not feeling super confident, you'll default into a lot of extra farming. So we'll see if Levi does keep up with that trend.
And there's the goal difference you were talking about on screen. G2, they are positive, but just barely. Furia was the ones who were consistently behind in the early games. They have been eliminated at this point. But BLG and GAM top in the charts there with the much higher values, with the stronger early games. And you can see here a comparison of those junglers that you were talking about.
Yeah, and as you can see, you know, some of these early game numbers is one of the focus. Levi getting very active, lots of kills and assists for him generated, a little bit of a gold lead. But of course, then Skumon with the KDA later on. But both of them actually just going for their full clears, opposite directions, of course. And we did see the Raptor ward go down. That gave them the extra information.
And the KDA on Levi being lower, I feel like, is a consequence of that full send PvP type of play style. He's going to be a part of everything. He's going to go in. The more you go in, the more you go down. And sometimes, hey, it works out and you're the noble sacrifice.
Yeah, he creates a lot of plays. Not all of them always good, like the Vi game that we were kind of talking about, some of the early stuff, but is always looking for those angles. And he has been on the international stage quite a lot, so definitely doesn't show any fear.
One thing I do want to point out in this one, just because I feel like we've seen a lot of it so far in the play-in stage, neither one of the supports running an unsealed spellbook this game. I feel like we've been seeing, especially as we're going later into Fearless in some of these best of fives, we're seeing more and more support picks taking the unsealed spellbook to make teleport plays or extra smites, but not happening in this one.
Yeah, generally we'll see a lot of the unsealed spellbook when you're in a matchup that you can like get away with it, right? And you don't need your aftershock. But here, both of them are like, okay, we're gonna need some extra tankiness for ourselves. So we go with that aftershock summoner spell on their side. And of course, that support matchup that you're looking at down there, we didn't address it in the champion select, but Alistar is always so good into Rel, pretty good at interrupting those combos, very good body blocker for later on, interrupting those crash downs. So we'll see if Labrov is on point with those.
And I do want to point out, because you mentioned earlier how, yes, the desk fully predicted G2 in this one, but it's so unique because of the format of this tournament. Both teams going into this final decider match have played the exact same opponents to the exact same results. Both of them having moments of brightness against BLG, but ultimately falling short to the clean sweep. And then both of them going the full distance against Furia, triumphing in the 5th and final game to get the 3-2 win. I feel like this should be a pretty evenly matched battle, and I'm really excited to see how bloody it gets.
Yeah, and our featured matchup up here in the top lane as Kia go back to mini form, a little bit of a trade there, but this is one of the lanes that everyone was looking at, because throughout this tournament, Kia has definitely impressed, and people were thinking Broken Blade is going to have a really rough time there. You know, maybe it's going to be GAM with the advantage in top lane, but G2 with the advantage in the mid lane there, since Emo has struggled a bit as well. But Emo's on one of his most comfortable champions. I mean, it's Talia. Everybody loves this.
Everybody's pretty comfortable with Talia these days.
Do love that champ, but him especially too.
All right, so we are not quite at level 6 for any of our solo laners here just yet, but everybody is about to crest that point. Broken Blade slicing forward, but does not get the second cast there on the dice. Kiaya would love to get this last little proc there on the Hyper, does nail that one. And I do think, yeah, the story of the top laners is going to be massive in this one. Kiaya, such a huge part of GAM's success, as now he's got to try to get away, but a flash in from Broken Blade. Kiaya is out of there, and Broken Blade gets first blood.
And it is Skewmond first on the gank, and it is during those reset timers where they have the bottom lane going back out to follow up. So that timer there, just a small window, and they make it happen. Broken Blade flashes forward, gets the stun, they punish the Gnar while he's in mini form, and all he needs is the extra little pillar there, and they get the kill. That is so big for confidence for G2.
Very, very well done. You're getting the player who's had the biggest struggles so far in the first 2 days of competition off to a good start, not just in the first few minutes of the game, but the first few minutes of game 1, setting the attitude, setting the pace for the series. And now Kiaya is going to be the target yet again. G2 did their homework. They know who they got to go after, and Kiaya is trying to get away as Skewmon continues chasing forward. Hans Sama doesn't even need to provide the extra damage. Skewmon lifts away with 20 HP. Now LeBron's gonna pay the price, so GAM get one back, but G2 are making plays, and they're making more of them faster until Emo has something to say about it, riding into the Weaver's wall. Levi's ready to knock him right back up into the air, and the feat of warfare is claimed by GAM.
So much value from Taliyah there. Emo able to push in his wave, and he ults down to find the counter kills. So here's another look at it. They see the mini Gnar. They see the mini Gnar with no rage here, so they instantly go for it. G2 are able to pull off their kill under the tower. Lebrov, as you can see, tanking the tower, goes then up to the top side there. They finish off the Gnar, but Skewmon gets so low here that the Xin Zhao and the Taliyah coming down, that play is not quick enough for them to escape with their lives. And it's going to be very big for GAM to get this money back, not let G2 really start to snowball this game, as they would have been pulling away so heavily.
Exactly. The G2 gold lead was up to 1.2, 1.3 thousand gold until GAM was able to hit back. And now you can see we're right back to dead even, and critically for GAM, they're the first ones to 3, so they'll get that first feed as well.
And I will say the areas that the gold is going to is pretty critical too, because even though they do get money back, it doesn't go into Kiaya. So this is going to be a game where they do have Kiaya a little bit underfed, a little bit on the back foot. Meanwhile, though, on the reset up to back to the top side, they do commit to those grubs. So GAM actually allocate the Taliyah back down to the bottom side as Broken Blade wailing away and getting some turret plate value in trade for that commitment up by grubs.
This could be a big game here for Broken Blade. He is the one with that massive lead for G2. This is where the resources are concentrated. This is a chance to say, okay, I know day 1 and day 2 haven't been ideal, but he can redeem himself here if he can put on a carry performance and put all of this attention that G2 is giving him to good use.
Yeah, and here you see some of the stats to kind of back up what has been going on in the tournament. And Kiaya with the extra solo kills, the extra early gold difference, but that is not the case this game. That is certainly not the case this game. Really good, flash play from Broken Blade to set that gank up. They get that first kill, and then the dive, of course, also keeping Kiaya behind on the Gnar.
All right, so Emo is still on control duty here for this fed lizard. Just going to continue to try to maintain some distance on that one. You throw out the unraveled earth so he cannot slice towards you unless he just instantly stuns himself after.
Yeah. And GAM, of course, the price they pay to go for those kind of trap plays and the team plays, they sacrifice a little bit of minions each time they do go for it. So couple of little CS deficits there as well. Emo down slightly, as now he's kind of planted himself in that side lane after they once again rotated over, and he's under attack.
Yeah, Emo gonna knock Broken Blade back into the turret as he tries to create a little bit more distance, throws a couple of rocks back. Now GAM is coming in to reinforce, but the fight is already over. Lebrov and Skewmon hanging around as Elio just gives him a couple of taunt spams.
And again, you see this kind of hover down from the team from mid lane. They rotate over, they threaten, and they're actually gonna commit to that rotation, but every time they do that, they're dropping some minions. Another minion wave here. You saw that one no cannon minion there in mid lane, so those minions, the melee ones, died to the tower before Emo's able to teleport back.
And I think that this story is being told wonderfully by just the mid lane CS comparison. What you're talking about here, Caps hitting 100 CS while Emo's still just sitting at 84. That's 2.5 waves that Caps is now up, and G2 are going to take the opportunity to seize control over the bot side river and go in for the first Drake. First piercing arrow from Hans Sama, doesn't find Elio or Artemis. Now the Weaver's Wall has arrived. Emo's ready to fight. They're gonna go after him, but it's LeBron the first target. Crash down into the Magnet Storm, finds Skewmon, but he's already powered up by the Subjugate. Curtain Call opens up, and Levi's ready to jump in. Skewmon is already down, and Levi's taking a kill. Hans Sama walks out of the way of the seismic shove. G2 continuing to try to get away from this one. Emo doesn't have enough damage to make anything else happen as the Deadly Flourish flies out. Now Chain CC to Hans Sama. He's stuck around for too long, and GAM with the punish. Get 2 kills for the Drake.
Yeah, nice snipe there to get the extra kill, because it was just going to be 1 for the Dragon, but they make it 2 with the slick skill shots here. Wait a second. This is going to be a stop.
Yeah, all right. He's all right. He's all right.
But man, yeah, the action continues, and GAM going for the kills. Yeah, G2 do get the objective. They do get the Dragon, but that is Hans Sama, both summoner spells, as well as both junglers, of course, using their flashes. But really, you have to think this Varus is going to be a target for GAM. They have a lot of possibilities.
All right, Broken Blade versus Kiaya. You can see, honestly, not a ton of catch-up opportunity for Kiaya, despite the fact that he was up here in the top lane farming the whole time. He's still down an entire Tiamat in terms of inventory combat power, so he probably doesn't want a whole lot to do with these 1v1s, but if it's not a 1v1, it's a different story. Elio coming up to help him now. Might be able to find the Shattering Strike here. There it is, into the crash down, but the rest of the damage is not there as Kiaya is back into Mininar form, but they'll at least force the Dominus out of Broken Blade.
Yeah, ultimate is pretty big. That was one of the things that got buffed on Renekton that really started the popularity to come back. One of the things so far in this game, though, is lots of big Taliyah plays from Emo, and G2 giving over a bunch of kills in a lot of these scenarios where GAM do go for the trap, but G2 overloading on this bottom side as Labrov working with Skewmon to help pressure Emo as well as take away the Gromp.
Exactly. They're saying, all right, if Emo's the one putting out all this pressure, if he's making all the plays, let's bring the pressure to the Taliyah instead. The 3-man positioning for a dive doesn't end up becoming anything as Levi is there to make sure that his mid laner stays safe. Kiaya with the Mega Gnar tries to jump in, but when the wall-up does not collide with Broken Blade, means there's no more of a play to be found. Still a couple of minutes until we have any more neutral objectives to fight over either. The Rift Herald 2 minutes away, the Dragon about 2.5. As we check in where all the items are, you can see Ghost Blades fully completed on both of our 80 carries in this one. Very close to Trinity Force for Skewmon. Meanwhile, the Sundered Sky with the lower price point has already been completed by Levi, but I do fully expect Skewmon to have that Trinity completed by the time we actually have the next big fight.
Yep, Trundle with the Trinity, definitely a fearsome force. And it's going to be interesting as we look at the game progressing a little bit further, because Kiaya has caught back up decently. You know, it hasn't been kept down too hard by that early focus. You know, the gank as well as the pressure with the tower dive, and the Gnar with this bunch of money that he should have, going to go get his reset now, get his purchase off, and that's going to be a big part of how they want to play, because they have a Taliyah wall, they have Jhin with the very long range, so they need Gnar to be operational in the side lanes, to be effective in the mid game for GAM.
And as Kiaya now waiting for this wave to crash into the turret. He's got Levi nearby as well in case G2 was thinking about trying to make another play up here, try to punish the Gnar in mini form again. We, of course, have God Vision. We know that's not going to happen, but Levi now pathing back down towards this bottom side. Rift Herald in about 30 seconds. Next Drake in a little bit over a minute as the mid laners square off in the bottom side. You can see the Blackfire Torch completed for Caps. Meanwhile, Emo with that Archangel Staffs building it towards the Seraph's Embrace. Taliyah doesn't stack it quite as fast as some other champions can, but already up to about 290. So once he gets that shield, he'll be feeling even more confident to keep making these aggressive plays with the Weaver's Wall, to jump in and try to find the angles for the rest of GAM to make the plays.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Let's see about the spawn up here on the top side of the map with this Rift Herald coming in. Skewmon gets the crab. He's got vision on the all-important brush for team fights right there with the control ward. Doesn't look like any early rotations, though. Teleport back out to the top side, though, for Kiaya. Gives them the option if they want to do for it. Of course, both Caps and Emo do have theirs ready.
Okay.
Caps pushed in on bottom side first, though.
Let's see how it goes. The Herald's already down to 2/3 HP. GAM thinking about it here as already Emo's ready to make the teleport come in and join the fight first. But a huge engage coming out from G2. They've already killed Elio before he can do anything. Levi's into the back line, looking to find some damage here on Hansama. Nice seismic shove back into Skewmon. A little bit more damage is needed and they're finally going to take him down, but he also has to be traded back again for another one. Broken Blade in the Braum trying to get away as Kiaya goes Mega Form. The Deadly Flourish doesn't hit, but the Weaver's Wall is ready to ride. Emo makes his way into the fight once again, and Artemis is ready to follow up. A little bit more damage on Caps isn't going to be there as Broken Blade has to slice and dice his way back away. And it ends up being a full scrap between both teams. Levi and Skewmon both dead. Junglers not present with the Rift Herald still on the Rift.
Caps camping on that control ward down bottom side, and Broken Blade from this brush.
Okay, not quite enough damage. He doesn't have Dominus. He couldn't charge up Extra Fury or anything. Kiaya's still safe for now, but he does have to respect Broken Blade.
Yeah, a little bit dangerous there. I was wondering if maybe Caps was going to try and pull a play onto Artemis, but it doesn't look like they were able to pin him anywhere down by that wall. And you have to say that last fight, Caps went for the stun on Emo under tower to try and interrupt his teleport. That's why Emo got there first, but they got the big lead from deleting the rel so early on. Kiaya here, since he is chunked out, not going to be a GAM answer. GAM have called, we're going to give you that Herald, we will go for the trade, but can they survive under tower?
Yeah, Elio's coming up here to try to help Kiaya. Kiaya hit the wave to guarantee that he would turn into Mega Nars, who would have the extra HP, but Caps goes in, Broken Blade gets it done. Elio now surviving, trying to in a 1 versus 5 with his top laner already down. He's got no way home. G2 will end up losing Caps as part of the process, so a 2-for-1 trade for them. They'll take the tier 1 turret at the same time. They'll guarantee the charge into the tier 2, and nobody in GAM colors is even around this thing, Kobe. They're going to get the tier 2 in the top lane for G2 as well.
Yeah, but so much is getting traded because GAM got the Dragon. They also are getting the towers here in mid lane and in bottom lane. Of course, the secondary tower is worth more, that tier 2, than the outer ones, but GAM getting both of these outer ones in addition to their Dragon.
Let's take another look at how it all went down all the way back to the Herald fight.
Okay, yeah. So this is the beginning, and let's see how they do delete Elio here so quickly. Oh, this is the stun that we were talking about. Caps wanted to interrupt the teleport just a little bit late there, so that means he arrives later to the fight. Oh, Elio already didn't have his support item there. It got knocked off, that extra damage reduction, so he just got bursted down very quickly. But then Talia arriving really quickly here, got the seismic shove to get the pull in. See Artemis there also kind of chunking Hansama, so he has to stay really far out, and that allowed them to go chase that extra kill.
And we got more action right back to live as Emo's in some trouble and Broken Blade has locked him up and beat him down. No way out for the Talia. G2 grabbing kill number 7 this game, and now with Emo dead for the next 30 seconds, it's an easy turret take here in the bottom lane. That's another tier 1 going the way of G2 as they build up to a 1,500 gold lead. Hansama, nice sidestep there with a Deadly Flourish to guarantee there's no counterpunch for GAM in the mid lane, but topside, Kiaya will get back a tier 1 of his own.
Yeah, GAM keep trading objectives back, but G2 getting all these extra kills plus the objective because they're the ones making the force, making the play. So they're the ones getting the little bit of extra gold from those kills.
And talking about extra gold, you can see 1.2 thousand gold lead just in top lane alone, and Broken Blade has his second fully completed item there in the Sterix Gauge. That is a massive power spike for the next team fight.
Yeah, certainly is. Makes you very, very beefy. You can get right in there on the enemy carries, pop that Sterix, and it is going to be a lot of force on the front line. They've got the Alistar, they have the Trundle ultimate as well to be able to shred, so they're going to have to worry a little bit about some of these long plays, though, from GAM. GAM have been able to utilize the Talia wall and some of this long range from Jhin to be able to get some picks for themselves. Side lane, though, with that item advantage for Broken Blade, should allow G2 to push the wave first and then get the first move.
All right, GAM trying to take a little bit of control over mid here. You can see a lot of wards focused around there on their side. Kiaya, level 13, honestly hasn't fallen behind Broken Blade in terms of EXP pretty much at all. It's really just the itemization difference as he's still trying to build towards that second major item of his own.
Okay, so Otacon spawning on the map right now on bottom side. Kiaya actually, because he stayed up there, is going to be able to get now priority on the wave.
Oh, but this is not a face check. I think he wants to take. Broken Blade's just ready and waiting for him. Does a quick combo. Right back to the wave, though. Because Kiaya is in Mega, he can still walk away relatively safely, get back, and get ready to join up with the rest of GAM here. We do have about 90 seconds until the next Drake spawn. Still a long way away until Baron makes his way onto the map, but G2 have a 3-man push here in mid lane. Remember that G2 already has the tier 1 turrets down in both side lanes. This mid one is the last one still standing in that outer ring, but they won't be able to change that here anytime soon, as the bottom river Scuttle Crab will be secured by Skumon 75 seconds before the Drake spawns.
I was wondering if the Syndra was going to be a bigger story and have trouble in the side lanes, but you see G2 every time they have him pushing a side lane, they have most of the team hovering over to that side too, so they would be able to collapse. Meanwhile, the other side lane,
oh, Kiaya versus Broken Blade. Kiaya getting some good damage there, but he immediately uses the Meganart to knock Broken Blade away. The Sterix Gauge shield is enough to keep Broken Blade protected, keeping him feeling safe. Does not have to worry about popping the Dominus here early. Kiaya throws out another Q into the wallop. Even though he gets slowed down by the Stride Breaker, he still feels safe enough. Broken Blade, though, wanted to spin the flash to try to engage there on the enemy top laner, as now the seismic shove, the Weaver's Wall, it's Emo, turning a fair fight unfair, making it so GAM comes out on top.
heck yeah, baited him in there for Emo. Emo's going to continue pushing as well. So even though Caps had shoved that wave up to the top side, they've got their teleport to answer. Kiaya can go collect that wave. That is just a nice kill.
Very, very well done there between the solo laners of GAM. Kiaya now with a Sterix Gauge completed of his own, going to feel much more comfortable in those situations.
And the timing of it. The dragon is spawning now, so still 15 seconds on Broken Blade. He's got his teleport though, so as soon as he respawns, we'll be able to use it.
He has a teleport, but he has no flash, and Dominus won't be up either. So if GAM wants to try to force this Drake, make this happen immediately, you're going to have a much less effective Broken Blade, who's still one of the most fed members on G2. It looks like he is going to teleport immediately. You can see Caps teleporting immediately down to this bottom side river as well, as both teams are scrambling. Kiaya is still down in the bottom lane. Remember, he does not have his teleport. He used it to get down to the bottom lane after the play top.
Critically though, he got enough money there to be able to get his Sterix Gauge as well. So the Gnar now with his 2 items as well. GAM actually really heavily shoving down there. Kiaya doing so much work on this tower with the Trinity Force. And they're going to trade the Dragon. Secondary tower picked up here. Kiaya barely gets it.
He gets it, and now he's got to try to join up with the rest of the team. Levi's going to be in some danger here as Lebrov and Caps go in, find some initial damage onto the GAM Drummer, but Kiaya goes in for the Mega Gnar onto both carries. He's doing a ton of damage to the Caps and Hanfo, but he doesn't have enough to get the kill. Caps is still alive. Levi is already down, and G2 holds on. Elio trying to retreat as G2 have a 4v3. Broken Blade tries to slice his way into the fight as Emo, Artemis, and Elio have to run away. It was so close for GAM, but Caps barely holding on, fires back from the other side of the wall, and G2 get a 2 for 1.
Yeah, that was barely a sliver of HP left for Caps. I mean, Kiaya had found such a good angle with both carries trapped inside the red buff pit there. Not done quite yet, though. Okay.
Oh, the flash in from Elio, but a nice backstep there from Broken Blade to get out of the way of the seismic shove. Elio down to 200 HP now. GAM wanted something, but not quite hitting their skill shots.
And during that, G2 are taking the Otacon here. So Skumon should be able to finish that one up. The attempt on Broken Blade's life right there. They do get the Otacon in the aftermath. So G2 with the gold lead as well on top of the extra flower power.
Gold lead, 2,000. +1 on Drake's, 25 flowers to 9 is a lot of extra adaptive force too. Even though this game feels very close, that last sequence of play led to by far the most significant lead of the game for G2 so far.
Yeah, Otacon buff is quite large. Let's see now, because their siege is pretty good. You've got your Poke Varus, you have your Syndra over here, and it looks like this tower with no defenders is going to be another possible casualty. Kiaya is Mega Gnar.
Yeah, and Lebrov is waiting right in that brush. Kiaya just walks right on past him. Emo's going to deploy the Weaver's Wall. Nobody on G2 gets caught on the wrong side of it. Now Lebrov taking the Blast Cone to get himself away. Elio could be in a little bit of danger here. Stuns up Broken Blade. Tier 1 turret for GAM still holding on. Scatter the Weak from Caps does not find a target. So although GAM cannot use Talia's ultimate to find a pick, they can use it to still stabilize against the G2 play in mid, hold on to this tier 1 turret, but it might only be for a few seconds longer, Kobe, because G2 doesn't seem done here in the mid lane.
Yeah, the siege is good. They've got some pretty long-range poke abilities, but looks like Broken Blade down on the bottom side, right back to pushing out here. try and get side lane pressure first, and they rotate up to the Baron. For GAM, probably gonna have to wait on that next Talia wall. Just keep your defensive vision up. Okay, they actually catch Labrov coming in.
Labrov's gonna take a decent amount of damage here. Immediately followed up there, but a nice pulverize onto 3 coming out from Labrov, and now Emo's in the middle of everybody, has to flash back over the wall trying to stay alive, and Skewmon is on the chase. GAM disengaging. A catch on an Alistar is often not a catch like you think it might be.
That's one you throw back sometimes,
Yeah,
Flowers.
back in the water you go.
That is a dangerous one. It does cost Emo his flash as well. So earlier you were talking about, oh yeah, some of these Talia walls, maybe you can go in, have that confidence. No flash means you have a lot less safety in going for those plays. Still though, they commit here with Kia pushing out on the bottom side. Does have his teleport ready, trying to get the side lanes going again.
All right, Emo will just go ahead and use that Talia passive, extra speed, get out there to the wave, get that pushed out. 90 seconds till our next Drake. Honestly, Kobe, these first 26 minutes have been exactly what I want out of this series. Both teams making plays, both teams completely unafraid to just go in for the big fights, as the pillar on Artemis puts him in a little bit of a compromised position. But Elio is nearby, he uses the heal, gives Artemis that little bit of extra speed. The cleanse not quite off cooldown there for Artemis. Sometimes kind of hard to tell with that icon, but it's not quite available. So saving Artemis's flash, very, very important right there, as Levi is going to find Skewmon walking into the jungle, uses the Krugs to escape back over the wall.
And Skewmon with the dead man's plate here, with the extra speed, is a really good stat checker, so you have to respect a lot of these moves when the Alistar and the Trundle are moving in for vision. It's very, very dangerous for anyone trying to contest that vision. G2 keep using that. Try and push in towards this red quadrant behind the Baron buff, set themselves up for some angles where they can utilize some of this Varus poke and even look for their picks with their Syndra stuns, with their Varus ulti.
The biggest gold lead in the game is now Skewmon over Levi with 1.5k. You can see Caps with a 1,200 gold lead over Emo as well. The top lane gold lead, however, has shrank. Broken Blade now only up 400 gold, but he did just complete Guardian Angel. Very, very powerful for one singular fight. Over on the other side, Kiaya going with more of a consistent, but not quite the same peak item with Wit's End.
Yeah. And looks like they are going to go fully commit to this Dragon setup. G2 dropping control wards everywhere in advance. Very dangerous for GAM to try and check into this.
Yeah, nice piercing arrow there from Han Sama to put about 20% of the health bar into Artemis. Another one connects there onto Elio. As Levi wanted to go for a win, becomes lightning. Emo fires off the Weaver's wall as Levi dives into the background. Han Sama in some danger, but he ain't gonna be killed off just yet. Levi's about to die to Skewmon as G2's counterpunch is way too strong. GAM thought they had him, but the only thing they have is an ambulance ride. GAM has already lost 4. A triple kill for Skewmon, and Kiaya is stuck between a rock and a hard place and a pillar, and he's about to drop as well. The ace for Caps for G2. The victory march. Game 1's done.
G2 ripped them apart there with the counter. Skewmon is way too beefy there. When Levi goes in, he just gets chomped down.
It's exactly what you said back in the lobby, man. Xin Zhao might like to scrap, but Trundle is ready to answer the call. G2 up 1-0.